I don't think that people around here need to hear my wailing laments anymore. Chris, you're giving me a thumbs up.
Because we're good to go, Dan.
Yeah, well, we weren't exactly, and we never are when you and Billy are in cahoots. I'm a little worried about this partnership that's
What is
developing.
that supposed to
Hold
mean?
on, you back the fuck off right to start. Just back off, because I'm pretty sure that what you did yesterday was on purpose. I'm pretty sure that in my time of need that you went out to Marlins Park and were secretly thrilled that nothing worked, that you got to play softball and our media company wasn't able to execute one of the simplest things, which is just go out to Marlins Park, talk, video it, audio it, get it back to us, and let's talk on a really big Marlins day, like one of the biggest we've had in a long time. Let's get our Marlins fans' opinions on the Marlins, or just watch him wander around a field watching Chris Cody get picked off second base with a cameraman who was really bad. But before I get to that, because you said with a thumbs up, Chris, that we were ready to go today, as I saw Billy wandering around the back of the studio, not ready to go. Can you guys explain to me what happened yesterday? Because I got enough on me, just generally, that our media company cannot execute you and Chris Cody at Marlins Park with a live report just telling me how you feel about the Marlins. Can you please explain to me what happened? We've got so many people who work here. We are paying so many people. Why couldn't I just get 5 minutes of Marlins content from you guys that was not incompetent?
It's a good question, one that you should be asking. I will tell you this. I had notes in my pockets on all the trades that I was going to whip out once we got to the trades. Unfortunately, we never got to the trades when we were there, and then apparently there were microphone issues. It's a whole thing. These live hits seem to be quite challenging.
Hard to run a network, you say?
Well, yeah.
We represented the company well, though. We shook hands. We kissed babies. That's what we're going out there for, right?
Yeah, yesterday was more of like a whole, it was almost like we meet the people, we see, hey, almost like talent scouting, is there a fit for you at the Lark?
I have enough people doing schmoozing here at the Lark. We're paying a lot of schmoozers. I can't help, honestly, cannot help but laugh. I have to laugh. In what is very obviously, the audience knows this, a time of need. The idea that Stugotz is working hard for somebody else in New York is just amazing. Stugotz always is telling me, hey, Dan, anything you need. Anything you need, just give me a call. And he gives me nothing that I need. It's even the simplest thing of just show up and grab your paycheck and work for it. He's at WFAN right now. It's his dream to be unprepared, just gas bagging, and we will cut into programming occasionally to check in on whatever he's doing, because one of the many things I'm worried about here in terms of trying to imprint the landscape with what we're doing as a media company is that Stugotz has learned so little that he secretly wants to do the common asshat sports radio show. Like, he doesn't actually want to do the fun thing that we do around here. He just wants to go in and talk to New York about what he thinks about the Mets, even though he can't recognize their shortstop as a lifelong Mets fan when shown a picture of him.
I was going to say the problem is that he wants that, but also in kind of working with him for some time now, I've noticed that he's kind of gotten used to the way this show is done, where he's not really watching that many sports. So it's harder to do the serious sports show breaking things down when you're not watching the games and they're expecting that.
Thank you, Billy, for pointing that out. David Sampson will be here in a moment. And I do want to, can you just pull out your notes and so I can.
I left them in my shorts from yesterday, but I can give you the things that I remember from my head if you would like. What a game, by the way, last night. Did you see that game? Also, Dan, I would just like to say, and I'd like to apologize for, what you went through yesterday with us, but we didn't plan for what happened with you when we planned this whole event a couple weeks ago, and we didn't think that we were all going to be out. In fact, I switched days so I could come cover today because Mike would be out. So then yesterday, that's why I was free. And it was like a whole thing.
Honestly, I just love.
And shout out to Taylor because he got the video out. Same day, Dan.
I loved how nimble we were as a company, that the day after my brother's death, the day after, the worst day of my life, our show was basically just Brad Williams. that.
And you actually.
Well,
were
if
here,
I hadn't
oddly.
shown up, is what I'm saying. Like, if I'd gone to tend to my actual needs, what it would have been Brad Williams in a chair where people wouldn't have been able to see him, because I'm sure the camera work would have been bad and stayed how it is on my 6'3" frame and not the way it would have worked on his 4'4" frame. But I'm grateful, even though it may not sound like it, that you're back today. But I need to know what is happening with Stugotz, because I can't help. I'm in breathtaking awe of the shamelessness of he does really think that he could swagger into WFAN, the sports radio show of his youth, knowing nothing. He knows nothing. And pull off 4 hours of radio because he thinks that he works in someplace that's real.
And by the way, he's already on a first-name basis with the security guard down there in the 5 seconds that you were waiting for me to come and get you. Like,
Mohammed, the man. I know. Listen, there are going to be times over the next 2 days, Al's going to be looking for me. You'll be looking for me.
Yeah.
I'll be talking to Eddie Scazzeri. I don't care. Like, I'm going to walk around this place. It's my playground. I might be in Eskin's office begging for a job, even though I told my dad 2 weeks ago the fan ain't happening.
Yeah.
There's no telling where I'll be.
Well,
But,
just hang around for a year. There'll be more changes. That's generally what happens. This place, we don't have the same.
The fake laugh is working. He's always got that. He could take that anywhere with him. Billy, we're just going to be checking in periodically on Stugotz.
He seems to have made himself at home. He's just doing sports.
But
Just
that wasn't.
Stugotz.
I still don't think that he did any prep for this appearance, and I think that it's going to go well for him somehow, which is great. I do wonder though, because I feel like the New York sports fan is different, and I wonder if that act is going to work there.
No. Are you kidding? The New York sports fan wants an informed person who's more informed than they are. They don't want a court jester. He's replacing Craig Carton. Well, he could fill that role as a scheming felon who deserves to be imprisoned. He is trying to replace Carton. Maybe he does think that that's the path. How do you imagine that's going? This is his dream. And it is fairly amazing that his dream includes being so spectacularly lazy that he thinks his talent, ego, and charm are going to carry him through the day as a personality who, again, knows nothing about anything.
How real do you want this answer to be from me?
The most.
Okay, so we were in a situation like this years ago at ESPN, and it was when you were on your honeymoon, and then there was a whole thing, and there was just kind of like 6 weeks of missing, right? And we went up to Bristol, and I told Stugotz, I go, look, like, we don't really know what's going on right now. Like, you're going to be hosting the show live from Bristol. There's lots of people here that this could be really good for you. Like, you should probably, let's prep. This is a big week for you.
Look at you planting seeds for him.
No, I'm not planting seeds. This was like a legit. I mean, you were in Bristol. Well, you were like going on tours of the cafeteria, missing meetings that we had. That was a whole.
That was a good video.
That was a whole thing. Dan, it doesn't matter. I'll just say this. I'm just going to tell you what I was told before we went on this trip that added stress. Because originally it was just like I was going in and I was going to have some meetings and check in. Stugotz was going to do a meeting. And then like Chris and Roy came. Roy, I think, was always going to come. Then Chris is going to come. And I was told by an unnamed executive before we left that said, make sure everybody knows that this is not a vacation. We're coming to work. And I said, I got this. So then I felt this added pressure. I'm like, I need to make sure we all show up to our meetings and we do our shows and we do all these things. Then we're missing meetings. And I'm like, where are you? The cafeteria is so great. Doing all these social videos.
I didn't know there were meetings.
This is what I was dealing with. So then with Stugotz, I said him, I go, Stugotz, like, we don't know what's going to happen here with Dan. Like, he just got married. I don't know. Maybe like
he was on his honeymoon. We knew he was going to come back.
Well, but Billy was saying that I've been on the fence about just walking away from all of this
well,
for
yes,
a long
no,
time
and
now.
that no, and at the time the China thing was going on. So like there was lots of meetings were happening. So it was like there was uncertainty in the air. So I said, Stugotz, like this is, if this is your
Do you
dream
want
to
explain
host
to
a
people what
mid-show.
the China meetings are?
Yeah. It was just,
That I refused to come back to work unless I could talk about China?
It was odd because the weirdest part was when we came back from Bristol, you still weren't coming to work, but you'd kind of come and hang out in the studio and check in with it. Like, hey, how's everybody doing? We're like, we are in a state of uncertainty right now because we don't know what's going on. You're just like, all right, see you guys tomorrow. And it's like, but like to work tomorrow? Like, nah, just hang out. And then you like disappear for like another week. So before I told Stugots, you should really take this seriously. Like, we should like, this is your chance if you really want to host a midday show or whatever it is that he wanted to do at the time. Like, impress these people, right? And he's like, I swear to God, buddy, I get that this is a big week for you. I'm all good. Don't worry about me. I'm all set now. Those days are behind me. Then like 6 months later, none of us worked for the company.
Yeah, and I would say to you what's also funny about that, when we started this new company and we did Freedom, and I was warning everybody, the executives, what Stugotz was. And that he would not prepare for whatever his portion of the show was when we were 4 hours into a 24-hour marathon. And what he ended up doing with his segment of great preparation was just calling Adnan Virk, who talks too much, and letting Adnan Virk do the segment. Every executive...
Movies, baseball in Canada?
Every executive at this company has wanted to fire Stugotz since then. So he lasted 3 hours here before every executive here also wanted to fire him. If I told you the stories of having to hold Skipper back by the collar to keep him from firing Stugotz, you guys would be amazed. Because Stugotz knows that he can't be fired, and he takes advantage of it in a way that at the time of my greatest need would cause resentment in a lesser man.
He was here on Monday, though.
He's just having the time of his life right now.
He lied to FAN. He confirmed that he was going to do FAN Monday, and I'm like, Stugotz, my brother's about to die. Like we need you.
Through tears, I need you.
Stugotz, I need you. Why are you working for free in New York? I don't need you very often. Just generally for anything. I could put anyone in that seat. I've done it with Cody's dad. I've done it with my father. I could take any fool and put him in that seat. You're not only fireable, you're the most fireable. Just help me when I need you. Stugotz. Stugotz. Amin El-Hassan will be here shortly with Charlotte Wilder. Amin came in today saying enough with Messi. Messi scored 2 more goals last night. He got tired of something that's phenomenal faster than anyone has ever gotten tired of something that's phenomenal.
We'll get to that, but it just kind of seems like maybe the MLS isn't that good.
Oh, but of course, yes. No, what is happening is the best soccer player ever has joined to play against a bunch of plumbers. And it's not fair what I'm doing there. Of course, they're professional soccer players, but he's better than they are, of course, because he's the best soccer player in the world. But what American soccer needs is for dumb people to say, wait, I could see a goal all the time. That's what they need. And Messi will bring that. I could see a goal all the time because those are traffic cones to him out there. And he's going to score goals every game because why? He's the best player ever. And he's still very good. And there are a bunch of guys who work at Publix, or the equivalent of working at Publix compared to what he is running around out there with him. And he's scoring a lot of goals in a game where it's hard to score goals, but Amin's already tired of it. And we will get to that in a second. We will also get.
I don't think he has much else than that, though. Yeah. He's like, I'm tired of it. I'm like, of what? And he's just like, he looks at me,
goals.
All of it.
Yeah,
I'm
goals.
like, okay,
Yeah,
thanks,
goals.
Amin.
Tired of goals. Thank you, Amin, for all your contributions. David Sampson is here. We'll get to him in a second because there's a lot going on in baseball. The Cubs are going to win their division somehow. They're scoring 20 runs every game. But, Billy, give me, please, your Marlins thoughts. The Marlins now have a burger, and they're selling $5 burgers.
That was just yesterday. If
but
you want that deal, it's on.
He looks great, that guy, just because he's got a mustache and he hits home runs and strikes out.
He's also a big boy, and we like the big boys around here. Last big boy that we had that I think we fell in love with was Justin Bohr. So I think we're going to like this burger. And then yesterday in the post-game press conference, he was talking about the culture here, which is not something you really ever hear, which is like, wow, things must really be bad for the White Sox.
So give me your thoughts on just everything that the Marlins did. I would assume that you already hate David Robertson.
It's been a bit of a rough start. He had his first game was perfect. I think it was a 1-2-3 inning. It was like, wow, like we solved this because AJ Puck was kind of struggling a little bit, and like we were kind of thinking as people watching the team, wow, the bullpen was so strong to start this off, and now we've hit a bit of a rough patch with the bullpen. This is not going to work out, especially when you're relying and your record is so based on having such a great record in one-run games. You can't have the bullpen kind of falter here. So then they go and they get a closer, and like, okay, like this is awesome because now the closer can be the setup guy, he could be the seventh inning guy. Like this is awesome. And for one day it was awesome. And then the day of the trade deadline, it stopped being awesome. And then yesterday, again, it was not awesome.
That is correct.
But then all of the new players that we brought in stepped up. I think they were on base like 9 times yesterday, which is kind of crazy. It's just exciting, Dan, to be buyers. It feels like it's been a long time since we've been buyers. And you have been comparing Robertson to Heath Bell, I believe, correct? Which is not a nice comparison.
I'm just saying that there's this time of excitement, and here comes David Robertson to clog the toilet with his shit.
Yeah. I mean, it hasn't been the best. I would say, and this is also not a good comparison because people didn't like this, this is kind of like Fernando Rodney's time with the Marlins, which wasn't good. We were like, wow, we're going to get this closer. This is going to be a nice little trade deadline move. He's going to come in. He's going to shoot the arrow into the sky after every save. His hat's going to be slightly askew. This is going to be amazing.
Roy, you smiled at the mere name of Fernando Rodney.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I loved Fernando Rodney. I know that's not a popular take at all. I loved Fernando Rodney.
Well, you love
didn't work out.
Well, this is the problem. You love what happened yesterday.
Well, I love names. Yesterday was great. Yesterday was a great game.
The game was great, but when I say you love what happened yesterday, in my time of need, you love that you and Chris were playing celebrity softball and failing to create content for me. You loved.
I said we shouldn't go live.
Same.
David, we'll come back to your thoughts on the Marlins. David Sampson, what were your thoughts on what it is that the Marlins did? Because it represents a change of blueprint. They go from we want on-base guys, we're going to try and win in the margins, we're going to try and play differently than home run ball, and then they trade for guys, and they trade a prospect, a legitimate left-handed prospect, so that they can have guys who do hit home runs but miss the ball an awful lot and don't get on base very much.
I think they realize you got to have someone who's going to drive in Arias because he's going to be on base half the time. And at the end, you can't really do the small ball as much as you want to say you can. And what they're hoping Berger can do is come in, and even Bell, they put him right in the middle of the lineup with Jazz and Berger, and hopefully that they can hit home runs and drive in the top of the lineup. It's a great formula. The pitching is fantastic. Don't worry about David Robertson and blowing saves. This time of year, you're looking for any hot hand you can find in the bullpen. But once it comes playoff time, you'll have the starters, and the Marlins have such great starters. They'll be in the bullpen. So it's just a matter of, can they be one of the 3 teams right now out of 6 who are trying to become wild cards? And the Marlins did a great job of getting talent at the deadline. But they're going against teams who also made improvements, who are also good. It's going to be a fun 2 months in Miami.
Is it going to matter? Because they went through that 8-game losing streak while Billy was on paternity leave. A paternity leave he has now realized that he did all wrong.
Yeah, I had a lot more time than I thought I did. I came back too soon. Because football season's coming back. I should have taken more time because during football season, I'm not going to be able to take any.
How much paternity leave do
I have
we
9 weeks to go.
That's not paid, though. That's not paid paternity leave, is it?
We don't need to get into that.
I don't know what the policy is around here. We have 12 weeks of
It's all
paternity
paid.
leave.
Well, it's parental leave now. It's all under the umbrella of parental leave.
I'm hoping the policy is that you get paid for the first 4 and then you can take off another 8, but it's unpaid.
Listen, don't worry about our policies, okay?
Lucy, you had some opinions here, and I want to get into this with David, who's interested in FSU possibly leaving the ACC. Just for those of you who do not know, Skipper ripped off the ACC at ESPN, did a disastrous deal for the ACC that was very good for ESPN, and now FSU is looking to leave, and Miami should absolutely leave the conference. Should have left a year ago. But, Lucy, you've got some thoughts in general about, the Pac-9 and just the chaos that is – I mean, it's just stupid. What's happening right now is the wild, wild west of crazy has arrived where they try to fix the injustices, and everyone's out for themselves.
It is like – we can't even say the Pac-9 anymore because I'm willing to bet by the end of the weekend, Arizona, Arizona State, and Utah are gone to the Big 12 because basically it's this wild moment right now where everyone's just waiting to see what everyone else will do. Arizona State and Utah said, we are not going to leave unless Arizona leaves. And then the Big 10 was like, well, we're not going to go after Washington and Oregon unless Arizona leaves. So we're all pretty much waiting for Arizona to do something. While all of this is happening, Florida State is like, oh my God. We are so behind. This ACC deal is terrible. John Skipper worked them. I mean, just highway robbery. And so Florida State is trying to see if they can get out of their ACC grant of rights, which they would have to go to court. That's never been done before. Because to put it the most just fitting example is Purdue. Purdue makes $30 million more a year than Florida State does. And they will for the next 13 years.
They're Purdue.
That's almost $500 million more that Purdue is going to get than Florida State.
Samson, you do that great business podcast with Skipper. I'm sure you've covered some of this ground. But what he did to the ACC was unholy in locking them up for what they thought was a great deal that is so far below market value.
And the only thing he will respond is that I can't make people accept a deal, and they wanted security, and we gave them years, and in return, we got the benefit. But in reality, what you guys are saying is exactly correct, and it's what Skipper did to Major League Baseball. It's what he does wherever he goes, which is why you want him on your team and not against you. He's sort of the Dennis Rodman of media executives. You hate him when he's not on your team, and you love him when he is. But this was the lead on Nothing Personal today, was what's going on with the conferences and FSU, and it is a major sea change, and I think we're just seeing the start. And where it ends, John has some interesting thoughts in a show that you'll see tomorrow on this, but where it ends is everything's going to look completely different, and what FSU's point is, we're not going to be left behind. The problem is legally, they already are left behind, and they can't get out of the deal. They're going to claim they can, and they're going to go to court to try. But if I'm a court, I'm not disrupting a contract because that has major ramifications beyond college sports. So I think they have an uphill battle.
Something happened yesterday that I found interesting that doesn't happen as often as I would expect in sports, given how much of a problem, David, how much of an evil alcoholism is. And I just am surprised this doesn't happen more often, where the Yankees announced that Domingo German, who threw a no-hitter earlier this year.
A perfect game,
that he needs to go away because he's got an alcohol problem. And why doesn't this happen more in sports? Given the plague that alcoholism generally is, why don't we have more often teams stepping in and saying, hey, this person needs to go to rehab for a while. They have a problem with alcohol.
Because we're not willing to do it until there's an acute PR issue. So there's players who drink and there's players who have drinking problems, but as long as they show up to the ballpark, even if it's in yesterday's clothes, as long as they can get on the field and take their at-bats, we're going to let it go. But when domestic violence starts getting involved, or the player's not good or not performing and they can find a way to restrict the player, which means not pay him, then you're going to start to take the high road and say, hey, we really want to help you. Brian Cashman said, we're worried about him and his family and the person. We're going to restrict you. Keep in mind, Austin Meadows, who is a player for the Tigers, is on the injured list for a mental health issue, still getting paid. But an alcohol issue, if you're an addict and you have to go to rehab or get help, then you're not going to get paid. So there's some sort of inconsistency there. But the overriding issue in this case, and it has not been announced as such, but I think it's coming, is there must have been some domestic violence situation, because he was already suspended for that this year. He was suspended under that, so he's had problems.
Well, wait a minute. That seems like, hold on a second, but that seems like, hold on.
Time to throw away all journalistic credibility and get reckless. Here is something we like to call reckless speculation.
You're good?
I think.
Yeah, I mean, you can't just say there's a domestic issue when you don't know if there's a domestic issue.
I think the word I used both here and on Nothing Personal was I'm speculating, given what Brian Cashman's comments were and the fact that they not only restricted him, but then announced he's not coming back at all this season. So I believe there will be more that comes out, but of course that's speculation. Right now, all we know is he's on the restricted list, and Brian Cashman said there was a danger for him and his immediate family.
I still don't understand, although you did explain it. I didn't know what you just explained, which is when you go on an alcohol restricted list, you don't get paid. That might explain why I don't see this happen more often.
Yeah, players do not enjoy being put on the restricted list because it stops their salary, it stops their service time, it basically freezes them right where they are. But when you're on the injured list, you actually get service time, you get closer to free agency, and you get paid every 2 weeks.
One of the curious things, David, that has happened this week with Domingo German, and especially, I guess, as more news, I guess we expect to come out or unfold at some point potentially here with him being shut down for the season, is the fact that the Yankees scratched him from his start on Monday, presumably because they knew something if this is coming, but then pitched him for 5 innings in relief afterwards, after saying that he had an injury. And I was wondering if you had any insight on that or had ever seen anything like that in the past.
It felt a lot like a punishment to me when I saw that happen, where he may have been late to the ballpark, he may have violated a team rule, and they said, we're not going to have you start. They covered it by saying it was an armpit issue, but it couldn't have been that big an issue because he then pitched 5 innings that particular day, and now this comes out. So my guess is they learned things in the interim period. They thought there was something happening, and then it became even worse than what they thought. But the problem is when you lie about injuries, which is what we all do. Marcus Stroman was just put on the injured list with hip inflammation because he's the worst pitcher the last month Remember when Noah Syndergaard was put on the injured list with a blister because he couldn't get anyone out? So you come up with injuries that cannot be proven. It's not like you see someone
Injured armpit's
twist
a
their
real
ankle.
doozy.
I'd never seen that one before, I must admit. And we're always looking for new ones. It never occurred to me to go to the armpit part of the body.
But why don't you even give it a day? Like, why would you even put that out there and then pitch him for 5 innings of no-run baseball? It didn't make any sense.
That's why there's obviously other stuff going on. So you are exactly correct, Billy. There is something else going on, and now we know the beginning of what it is because he's now on the restricted list, but there still will be more that will come out. And without ruining any journalistic integrity, which I'm not a journalist, there will be more information because people will need to know the truth about what is happening. Because Brian Cashman's comments were inflammatory in terms of it. If it's just alcohol, John Morant went away for 8 days. And that was for guns and strippers and alcohol, and then he was cured. They announced he's restricted, and it's 2 months of suspension.
At Le Batard Show, please, Juju, put it on the poll. Have you ever had an armpit injury? You correctly corrected me when I called Herman's perfect game a no-hitter. Quietly, I thought quietly, Framber Valdez for the Astros threw a no-hitter a couple of days ago. 93 pitches. Pretty interesting story. Was discovered pitching in the Dominican in the dark under car headlights, signed for $10,000. But the no-hitter in general has been devalued so much. Does anyone care that a major league pitcher threw a complete game no-hitter a couple of days ago?
I think they should care. It just happened to be on the same day that the Astros got Justin Verlander, and it was the same day as the trade deadline, so it didn't get as much attention as it should have. Framber Valdez is likely to win the Cy Young. He is an important part, and he was the leader of a rotation of a team that may go to the World Series, and now he was put to the number 2 spot, and he showed the Astros we've got a great 1-2 combo now with Verlander and Valdez, but he threw a Maddox game. And for those of you who don't know, Greg Maddux, he could do complete games in 85 or 90 pitches, very efficient, and that's what Valdez was. It was a beautiful game to watch, especially this year when the games are so much faster. Everything's better in baseball right now, in my opinion at least.
You say everything's better, and one of... Oh, my God.
We did this 10 years ago. I would feel this immense pressure. I had people wishing me good luck, Gio. They're wishing me. I've been doing this for 25 years. I've had ridiculous success, probably most of it undeserved, but I've had it nonetheless, okay? And they're wishing me good luck, and my response was, hey, if Gio and I are great for 2 days, he goes back to Boomer on Monday, I go back to my great job in Miami on Monday, and if we're terrible, he still goes back to Boomer on Monday,
Right.
and I still go back to LeBatard, I think.
Right, you think. You think.
We'll see.
And
Yeah.
you do have this backpack with you. I did see a shank with Evan Roberts' name on it in there, so I did catch that when you were looking for your headphones.
You saw it, huh?
Yeah, so you're going to...
I got to be careful with you.
Yeah, I know you're going to be sticking around all day. Watch your back, man.
Hosted all 3 shows. Who's next, by
Put
the
it
way?
on the poll, please, Juju. Should Dan feel like he's walked into a bedroom where his wife is being slept with, hearing Stugotz' fake laugh for somebody else? Why does that sound so tinny and shitty? Is that the way that we...
Local radio,
WFAN,
baby.
yeah.
Okay, it's just local radio. That's the way local radio sounds. Stugotz is in New York, not working here, taking advantage of our entire situation. I would love to hear him talk about the Mets, his favorite team. He knows nothing about them. Their payroll is, David, is it $80 million or it was? I read a couple of great stats that it was $80 million more than anyone else in baseball. And also, if you just took all the former players they're paying right now, that would be the 17th highest payroll in all of baseball. If you just took the guys that aren't playing for them that they're still paying, because that has to be, even for a franchise that has had a team that has had the highest payroll before and finished in last place, that has to be the biggest disaster in the history of money spending in that sport.
It's pretty close. And to your point about what Stu knows about the Mets, I have to tell you, Dan, that my phone went off, and it was Stugotz texting me saying, hey, can you go on WFAN on Friday morning to talk about the Mets? So I'm doing a segment with him because I need to go through the Mets situation and make it as though that he's the one who knows about the Mets. And so my response to him, and this is an actual response to him, I said, is this a new gig? Does Dan know?
He's guest booking for FAN.
Yes, it is funny. David, just tell me your thoughts as a new Meadowlark employee about how I should feel in this time of need that I have, that my co-host has decided, hey, I'm going to fly to New York and do the show for free up there because they need my fake laughter to revolutionize the AM medium and sports radio in general to keep the medium alive.
I'm hearing, sorry, David, to interrupt. I'm hearing that today he booked the Giants GM, Phil Shane, who he's friends with and grew up with or was in his country club or something and was on God Bless Football. And he's been promising that guest for like 2 months now and now has blown that favor on a WFAN hit.
To impress WFAN because he's trying to show that he's got contacts in the industry.
David as a guest on Friday makes 100% sense, though, for Stugotz because, like, first day Mets, you go with all the bluster and the outrage of them trading everyone, and you just kind of focus on the rage and the outrage of that situation. And then day 2, you kind of have to give a little more, and then that's when you bring in a David to come in and give you the actual information.
He actually wanted me day 1, but I had a conflict because I'm doing your show. And I said, you understand that we should be prioritizing Dan's show, right?
He doesn't understand, no.
And then there was not a response except, how about Friday?
That would be even better, David, if somehow you weren't available to your hit either, where he's not only actively playing defense against the show that he gets paid for, but also takes our guests away to give them to WFAN. It's just chef's kiss on awful. I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep him employed for the length of his contract. I really don't.
I'm doing my best to try to navigate this minefield because it was making me laugh, and I didn't want to pry too much into him. But I did have a few texts of, hey, does your contract allow for this? And I don't necessarily want to publicize what the response was. But that said, I'm going on FAN tomorrow.
Okay, can we publicize what the response was? Though, as the founder of the company and the only one keeping him employed at this point. Can you tell me what the response is as Stugotz is really this character filled with despicable behaviors? It's not a bit.
Is it a gig? Who knows? Maybe just for now.
Oh, so it's an audition.
I think what's happening.
He's trying to get to New York.
So here's what he's doing. I believe that part of this whole plan, it's the cover-up is, hey, I'm covering for a friend, and I'm just doing this because I know him and we've had a relationship. He's just trying to make sure that he's taken care of in case there is any sort of person who comes to Meadowlark who looks at the contract and says, wow, this is a violation, and you are now terminated for cause. He's got a soft landing.
Yeah, that's probably what's happening right now.
Joe Shane, Giants general manager, with us here on Boomer and Geo. Joe, we appreciate you doing this. How do I get you, Geo, and myself on the golf course together, okay?
But you better call me soon while you still got my number.
I think he's changing it right after this interview.
We appreciate it.
He is trying to do the old guys talk about their golf games on AM radio as the end of his career. He's learned nothing from us.
Joe Shane with us here.
Yes, let's do golf jokes and
Oh, no, he's going to cry. Are you about to cry?
My partner thinks that people want to listen to 3 country club guys say, how'd you do on the 4th hole? How you hitting them?
Just fake laughing his way to the top.
If you consider the top a totally dead medium, as opposed to the future he would have here in the future of broadcasting around a media empire if he doesn't get fired because of cause. Steve Cohen is doing what? Flying to Kansas City.
Getting barbecue, meeting the media, trying to figure out how to explain what happened with Max Scherzer this week. The top story of the deadline was Max Scherzer telling everybody that the Mets are not all in or competing in 2024. Steve Cohen had to run to Kansas City to meet his players, he met the media and he said, hold on, having all these stars doesn't mean you're going to win. And I'm not saying we're not going to be competitive because I'm Steve Cohen and I don't want to be embarrassed. And the whole thing was embarrassing. Everything that's gone on, them signing all these guys, trading these guys, it's like they're the Marlins, for crying out loud.
Tomorrow, David Sampson and John Skipper will give you as good an hour on sports business as you will find anywhere here on our feed. Nothing Personal is his podcast. It's part of the Le Batard and Friends Network, and I will tell you again, he's covering terrain that nobody in media covers, and he does it consistently, daily. What are you reviewing for us today? What is the movie before you get out of here?
I'm reviewing the Ashley Madison affair. And it's a subject that maybe you don't want to talk about, and maybe you only got a few minutes. But this is a company where it's a website that connects people who want to have affairs. It's married people connecting with other married people for the sole purpose of having sexual relations. And it's supposed to be private, except they got hacked. So not only were people's information released, which led to divorce and suicides, but on top of that, it turns out that half the women on the site were created like AI women. They weren't even real. It's an entire documentary that explains Ashley Madison. It is fascinating and well worth your time.
David, thank you. I remind the audience, Nothing Personal is the name of the podcast. We will talk to you, sir. The information on his podcast is very, very strong. I'm telling you that some of the stuff that he talks about just gets avoided by people who are a little bit more scared. Gonna have a tribute for my brother next. There are some local sports things that I wanted to talk about, including Tyreek Hill saying, this is so good.
Cheetah.
Tyreek Hill saying, I'm going into the Hall of Fame as a Dolphin. Just love everything about that.
He's all in.
Well, and he is going to make the Hall of Fame, but he's played for the Dolphins for 1 year. I don't think that has ever happened before. It publicly, I'm going to say that Cheetah is unprecedented in making these comments this way, just telling people, and he's right, he will make the Hall of Fame if he stays healthy.
And he will have more years if you give him a long career. He will at that point have more years with us. So I see where he's going.
Well, no, I think he said that he's going to retire after this contract. But also,
All
like
right.
in the NFL, it's just a bust. So like, you don't go in as anything. You go in as your face. That's what you go in as.
That's wild that you go in as a bust to the Hall of Fame. It's just a weird word choice.
The idea that
you get it because a bust is a bad player.
Yeah, I got what just.
And it's someone you draft in fantasy, and
not
they don't
only
pan
did I
out.
get what you were doing,
I think it went over Dan's head.
I get that you didn't have confidence in what you were doing, and now you're over-explaining the joke in a way that doesn't cover up your lack of confidence, like a cat covering up in a litter box what it has done with its shit. I know what you were doing there. I prefer you not compound.
Now I'm giving myself a bath
by continuing. To do it. Yes, a bust. So what you're saying is a bust is the sports word that you most associate with being the opposite of the Hall of Fame is what you mean.
Zagak.
But I like Billy's take better in that Tyreek Hill is saying something that is patently ridiculous by itself because he's been with the Dolphins for a year, but also inaccurate because you don't go in as a player of any kind.
Just going as you.
I'm telling you, Tyreek Hill is trying to take the lane of athlete in sports who knows that he can say anything and the words don't mean anything. As long as you stay away from wherever it is that canceling is, and even that, he's so fast that he can avoid it. Like, they'll just keep playing him no matter what he says.
Got close to that line.
No matter, he's already there.
Avoid marinas.
Tyreek Hill is already right on the cusp of, you do really bad things all the time, but you're fast and you get in the end zone, and football fans will tolerate that 16 weeks a year because I don't want morality with my sports. Stop talking on sports radio about Deshaun Watson.
I'm going to be boots on the ground tomorrow at training camp, so I'll report back on
Are
Monday.
we going to have live video and audio and the ability? No, okay, great.
A couple selfie videos from me. Do the trick.
I'm a little bit discombobulated because of the events of the week. I am going to at some point, and I thank our audience so much for its patience. And even those of you who haven't been quiet because you're not patient, I
bet you feel bad now, huh, you jerks?
I appreciate that you have stayed with us during what has been a very difficult transition because as we try to compete with ESPN as a network, we can't go out to Marlins Park and have video and audio.
Well, we were there.
That works. The other part, and have video and audio that works so that we can get sports information. It has been a trying time for reasons that I've enumerated here on the show. I will tell you again that I am just so profoundly thankful for so many of you who have reached out with comfort and trying to say nice things at a time that it is impossible to know what to say to me. We will have a tribute to my brother here in a second that the video team has put together. I'm scared of what that will be because I have a bit of mistrust in general of everything happening over in video.
Can I ask you where to send people? Because I'm getting a lot of messages of what's Dan's address. I didn't want to just start. I almost tweeted out your address.
Should we, just say your address now so people can send stuff to you directly?
Yeah, please don't do that.
Put it on the lower third, Louis.
Thank you for asking because a lot of people have been asking. And I can, you can imagine, right, my discombobulation when I'm telling you that I'm totally short-circuited. There's stuff here that my parents can't see, shouldn't have to see, and so I'm sort of responsible for everything that's happening here. And when you walk out of your, I will say again, someone corrected me by email, and I appreciate the correction. I said I had to see my brother deteriorate, and I should have said I got to see him deteriorate because I'm promising you that it is a blessing to know, as I sit here today, that the last thing I said to him when he was coherent was, I love you. The last thing that he said back to me, the last words I heard from him were, I love you. And the last thing I did for him, was feed him a bottle of water because he couldn't do it for himself. And I am hugely grateful for the number of people who have tried to say things that comfort me in what has been a really hard time, obviously. And when you walk out of that and you're like, okay, well, where do I send the body and where does it go and where do I keep it and what are the details and what do I do? Oh, man, I didn't want to do this again. I'm grateful for what everyone has done, but what I wanted to ask you guys seriously, as it relates to this, is I am feeling in many ways, right, like I am getting exceptionally old and that time is generally short. And as people reach out and don't know what to say, one of the places that I feel old, because social media is moving very fast, and technology and the internet age, it embarrasses me how often I have to ask my wife to help me with something because it's just passed me by. One of the ways it has passed me by is I am a little bit stunned as someone who has not dealt with what I am presently dealing with, that what I've received is literally thousands of texts and 4 phone calls. And I'm wondering in the disconnect of that, right? In the disconnect of it, because people don't know what to say. They figure you're overwhelmed. They figure you got enough going on. They don't want to bother you, but they want you to know that they care about you. But that is a technological step of disconnect that I never considered. Don't you want to talk to me? I'd like to talk to you.
I think people just don't want to bother you, knowing
I get
that you
it.
have so much going on, you know?
I had that thought yesterday. I'm talking to my dad. I was at lunch, and I'm just like, what have you? And he's like, I sent him a long text. And I was just in my mind, I'm like, maybe like go or like, because he's like, it's just, but I get it from my dad's perspective. It's like,
I'm not complaining about it. I'm just legitimately confused by it as an observation because I'd feel like an asshole to complain that someone's reaching out to you, but it's sort of the bare minimum of a way to reach out to you. It's not the bare minimum. I suppose you could just post it because you want to be around my brother's fame. Like you could just, this is how much I care, virtue posting. I suppose that would be caring also possibly less or look like it anyways, but I'm legitimately appreciative about anybody caring at all.
So your phone number underneath your address on the screen is what you want, so people can just directly call.
We'll get on that.
I don't know what we're going to do. My brother
You're
didn't.
so right, though.
My brother. This is one of the many confusions I'm facing, right? Because I don't exactly want to be party planning right now and putting together guest lists. My brother didn't want a funeral. My brother, of course, wanted people on stilts and clowns and wanted a party.
Are you
Do
doing
all
that?
his style.
Did he want it at Kmart?
No, Billy.
Yes, Billy. Can you organize that? Can you get on it right now
I've
for
been
me?
trying
No,
to
please.
make
I
this
could use
Kmart
the
thing
help. You know,
happen
we
for
can.
so
You got a
long.
kid now, and I'm falling apart. You want to. Yeah, you got 2 kids. So yeah, you handle that. Go ahead and handle the service for me. It would take a huge weight off my mind, please.
I have a question for you. Can I ask you a
Oh,
question?
God.
But let's do
Oh,
Kmart.
no.
Let's do Kmart. My brother's service. We will have clowns and stilts, and we will do it Moss Miami Billy style to remember my brother.
So when people reach out to me to reach out to you and they tell me, can you give Dana a hug for me? Am I supposed to give you like 50 individual hugs? Does one hug suffice for everyone? And then I'll just list you who it's from? Like, how does that work?
One hug, and then you whisper all the names it's from.
So like I go hug, you'll say, that's from Liam Chapman. Geron from 790 says he's really sorry. Like, do I do that or?
Let's do it. Let's do them all. You could do them all now.
I think those are the main two.
You know what? All of you, Billy, I am happy to reverse the anarchy on you. Please, all of you who are sending condolences,
don't do this.
Do it through Billy.
You deserve this.
Do it through Billy so Billy can offer your condolences to me and a hug and whatever it is you'd like Billy to do for me. Because, Billy, I now need you.
I'm doing in-person hug cameos.
Do you prefer fruit or flowers? Because I'm getting that text a lot.
In lieu of, please.
I will figure that out in the coming days. One of the many sort of tensions that I have here, and as I'm trying to figure out the correct thing to do on something that I never considered having to do. Obviously, it's not something. And the other part of it is while he was deteriorating, his amazing wife, Brenna, didn't want to talk about that. Like, we're hopeful, you want to hope. You don't want to plan. You don't want to bring into the room the planning of a funeral or these kinds of arrangements. So hard enough to bring in an attorney on will and testament stuff because you got to get your affairs in order. We told a year ago you got to get your affairs in order, but it still lands like a thud. And I'm genuinely torn, Chris, as we sit here, because a lot of people are reaching out, hey, what can I do more than a text? And it's not just that my brother didn't want a traditional ceremony. It's going against my brother's wishes there because funerals are for the living, and I know people want to pay their respects. Like, so what do? I want to respect his wishes. I don't want to do anything traditional, but that requires planning, and I'm trying to run a company that can't air something from the Marlins park.
I think what Dave would have wanted should be the top priority here.
But people want to pay their respects, and I want. They
can text you.
But this is another thing. This is another thing that the public would soothe me on, is to be able to tell me things about my brother that I didn't know, to keep his memory alive.
When I started creating artwork on a broader level, that's the way I started to sign my work as well. I consider myself a cartoonist, and the way that I choose to describe my work is as postmodern cartoon expressionism. I think on good weeks, I'd probably be in the studio about 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day, and to me, this is where I want to be the most. For years, I had my studio in my living room, and before that, when I was living with my parents, my studio was in my bedroom. So to me, there's really no turn-off switch, and I really think that's a beautiful thing. It's a real blessing that I've been able to kind of exist in that place since I was a kid, encouraged by my parents, and can still be there. When I graduated from university with my BA in philosophy and art history and zero prospects at getting a job, I kind of made a decision that I wasn't going to have a plan B, that I was going to set out to be an artist. Good call. But I just really feel that it's an artist's role, in my definition, to remain an individual. I mean, all my first paintings were sold out of the back of my car. Yeah. I was doing murals on the street for 3 years before I got my first big commissions and things like that. And it was definitely the road less traveled. The similarities between having designed the hull of a cruise ship, so a 1,000-foot-long vehicle, and taking that to a 20-foot vehicle, it's an amazing opportunity and it's an amazing creative challenge to be able to play with both of those scales. It's a piece of American history, fusing the gift that I've had to be an artist and be creative and produce canvases and paintings and drawings and things like that, and really fuse it with something that I love to do and something that's a passion of mine beyond that, which is traveling on the road. The reason I started doing the reverse plexiglass pieces was that I'd seen Alex Gacco, who works with Park West, do them on a cruise that we were on together, and the end result really interested me. So they're all pulling from different elements of history and symbology and the collective unconscious and things that we see around us all the time, and some things that are obscure, and being able to compile all those things together and tell stories through that. But it does it in such a way that it really challenges me to have to do it in reverse. So when I get back to doing it the other way, they really complement each other, and it actually, I feel like it makes me a better artist. If we're looking for advice, the first thing I would say for any aspiring artist is don't go to art school. Don't take out loans to go to school.
Save the money. Yep.
Take some business classes online. Learn how to do P&L reports. Learn how to manage your resources as a business first and foremost. And the second, which is what I started out with, is discipline yourself to work every single day.
There you go.
And if you don't want to work
Recurring
that
theme.
day, you still work that day, because Kung Fu means hard work. And Kung Fu is rooted in form and in discipline. And the more we can discipline ourselves as artists, and I was taught you got to make 1,000 bad pieces of art before you make your first good piece of art. So resign yourself to making 1,000 bad pieces of art and work every day to get there as quickly and mindfully as you can.
It is now time to chat with my favorite, more talented son, Lebo. Aside from being a world-famous artist, he has also never willingly attended a sporting event. Let's test Lebo's sports knowledge.
Dabo Swinney, what does he do for a living?
Dabo Swinney, wow. Decathlon. Or Nigerian distance runner.
Which month does the men's college basketball tournament take place in?
In the summer. Sometime during the summer, no?
A month.
Name a month.
July.
July Madness, ladies and gentlemen.
And now it's time for Lebo's Mind Bender. Mind Bender.
Would you trade 5 years of being a world-class athlete, competing internationally, if it would shorten your life by 1 year?
Yeah, I think I'd do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I would do that.
Yeah.
No problem at all.
I mean, no, I had to think about it, but I think those would be a really fun 5 years. How good am I as a world-class athlete? Like how good?
You'd play year-round every sport that you could play, and you'd be in the top 5% of that sport.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun. That'd be
great,
five fun years. And then I'd just trade, something in my 90s. I just trade one of those awful years
in the 90s,
in
right?
My 90s,
yes.
that's right. When everything hurts and I have a heroin addiction because one of the years in my 90s I would trade. My family doesn't really understand what I do. My father and my mother are the worst sports fans in the world. My brother doesn't care. I'm very alone. Can you name a professional football coach? A single one currently coaching, not Don Shula, because you saw him on 7-Eleven Cups when I was growing up.
Current football coach. Peter Jackson? What's that guy's name?
That's a totally made-up name.
I believe he directed Lord of the Rings.
No, not Jackson. The guy that used to... Phil Jackson. Did he move to football? I thought maybe he moved to... He used to do the Bulls.
All right, very good. Lebo Arthur Jackson. Where you go. Phil Jackson. That's right. I don't know anything about art either, so we're even.
I don't have an art show that I can ask you questions.
You can
make
expose
a fool out of you.
Right.
Expose them.
That's the difference.
Right. What would some of those questions be? Like, give me a. We should do that.
Wow.
We should do some of that. Like, like some
Art
basics. We'll give you the
Stugotz,
sports.
the man who's never willingly attended a museum.
Yes. Right.
Let's do this.
All right. Let's play the game with my brother here.
Who painted Guernica?
What?
Who painted the painting Guernica?
Picasso.
There you go.
Nice. I feel like he's gonna do. I feel like Stugotz is just gonna go.
Right
that's
there.
gonna be all the answers are gonna be Picasso and Van Gogh.
What about what art movement was formed around the idea of dreaming and dreams, especially Freudian psychology?
Picasso. There you go. No. Surrealism.
I feel like that's a less fun show.
Boring.
Now
It'd
we
be
know.
boring.
Now we know why there's not any art radio, art talk radio.
It's music questions.
All right.
Years ago, when my brother was in college, I'm 4 years younger. I was looking through his music collection, his tape collection. Had Paula Abdul and Lionel Richie Dancing on the Ceiling was in there. So.
Yeah, he made fun of me. Clearly still makes fun of me
Still
about
makes
that.
So I don't feel like my brother knows a whole lot.
I also had Two Live Crew, the clean version. I
That's
was
true.
the only one who had Two Live
Clean
Crew.
version is so disappointing.
Well, the sheriffs and we went to the Supreme Court. You couldn't even get the naughty version back then.
You couldn't get
People were getting arrested.
Yeah.
All right. So what do you got now? So these are all music
related questions. Name 3 Beatles songs.
I don't love the Beatles. But I can get 3 Beatles songs. It's just I'm under pressure.
Under Pressure was actually by Queen and David Bowie.
Yeah, Freddie Mercury.
Want some help
No,
here?
look at
or-
Stugotz. No. It's that
I'm trying. I
no,
can't
it's
remember.
that I'm choking. I saw the entire. I went to see the Beatles' Live performance in Las Vegas, and I know their songs.
You cried during that, I believe. I think there was tears at that performance.
This is actually a choke job. All right, Love Me Do.
Okay.
I don't know if that's the title of it, though. Is it actually the title of it? I know so many Beatles songs. Christ, this is just.
Chichi Rodriguez is not one of those songs.
This is just me actively choking. Yeah, I don't. I mean,
Well, Love Me Do is one. You're good.
There you go. That's
one.
right. Hey Jude would be, I think, most people's obvious one.
Help.
Help.
Mhm.
That's all right. We don't have to go into all of them. Name the 2 hosts of Yo MTV Raps.
Both of the hosts. Oh man, I'm forgetting these guys.
I think we'll settle for one at this point.
Yeah.
I know what they look like.
Okay, that counts, right?
In your mind, what was the name of the first song played on MTV and who performed it?
Video killed the radio star. But who performed?
The band is pretty tough.
Yeah, it is tough.
That's pretty good that you named the
I
song.
think it's the Buggles. No, or the Boggles? Buggles.
Yeah, Buggles.
I know. So, wait a minute, Fat Chris. What kind of opinion do you have on Stugotz, the know-it-all, who hasn't actually had to say anything during
no one's
any of
asked
this?
me. The questions are for you.
He's just throwing in his little one-liner that
I would ace this
doesn't
test.
prove that he knows anything.
Stugotz was right?
No.
Holy Stugotz was right.
Now, what if you had to eat a beetle, a cockroach, or a giant locust?
All right, see you later.
No,
All
this is a
right.
great game.
That's it. It's done.
Stugotz isn't. He's all 3. Can I pick all 3?
He's leaving now. LeboArt.com. Thank you. He is my brother. Check it out.
Pay that man his money.
All right, you guys are ready now. My brother has had some very funny responses over the years, but none funnier than who's the shortstop to the New York Yankees. I know this one. Eric Jeter. So
close. You
yeah,
were.
so close. Name a Golden State Warrior.
Oh, God. Couldn't even begin to. A Golden State Warrior. Golden State's first name, and I know it's absolutely not, is Larry Bird. I'm saying it with a caveat that I know it's correct.
I mean, what is the name that insulted a woman who was a journalist and was sexist? What is the name of the person at the center of that controversy?
I'm just going to go with averages and go with Donald Trump.
That was it? An excellent guess, but no, incorrect.
Judges?
He was not involved in this one. No, not at all. What does the symbol K mean in baseball?
Home run.
Oh, it's the opposite.
Knock it out.
Knock
it out.
Knock it out.
Knock it out.
My brother just muttered under his breath, "Boom, radio gold. Enjoy that." Pointed at everybody. Pointed at Cody specifically, as if you don't know what radio gold is, Cody. You didn't say anything.
Lebo is better at this than Cody.
He was air drumming and tapping his thumbs on the floor.
Roy is wearing barely nothing right now on ESPNU. I dare say he is the least clothed person in the history of the Disney Empire. And it's also happier than I've seen him look in about a decade. He has been smiling. He was very pleased to take off his clothes
Yep.
He had no issues. Sarah Spain threatened him, and he had no issues with this. And now my brother has arrived to do an artist's rendering of Roy very expensively. Sarah Spain, this really backfired on Sarah Spain.
Roy is ripped, man.
Well, this is not comforting news that I'm about to share. My little brother, my only sibling, my closest family member in a very small family that's very close, responsible for all the art around here, and my best friend for 50 years, passed away last night. I've spent the last year saying all the things, getting a chance to appreciate him and say goodbye and ask for forgiveness for the family stuff and pour out my heart to him. And I will tell you that there was grace and freedom at 2 o'clock in the morning to be in his ear, like physically mouth to his ear, telling him that it was okay to go, that he was safe, that he didn't have a reason to be scared, and to see him stop suffering, and to see him peaceful amid the horror of that was a seismic and great beauty that I'll forever be grateful for.